Why does a philosophy written in dusty scrolls 2,000 years ago feel like the most modern idea of the decade? Why, in an age of algorithmic feeds, quantum processors, and instantaneous global communication, are millions turning to the same wisdom that guided emperors, enslaved teachers, and wandering thinkers of the ancient world? Since 2016, Google searches for Stoicism have quadrupled. It trends on TikTok. It appears in podcasts and mental health videos. It slips into the vocabulary of high-performing athletes and young people wrestling with uncertainty. The question rises again and again. Why is Stoicism booming now? There is a strange paradox at the heart of it. We live in the most technologically advanced moment in human history, yet it is an ancient philosophy that seems to give so many people the sense of clarity, grounding, and psychological strength they cannot find anywhere else. Somehow, a worldview born in the marketplaces of Athens and the courts of Rome feels more relevant, almost more futuristic than the world we inhabit. The resurgence is not nostalgia, it is hunger, a search for a stable inner operating system in a time when everything outside seems to change too quickly to grasp. Stoicism, for many, feels like a blueprint for living with purpose amid unpredictability, a compass for navigating chaos, a quiet voice that whispers, "You may not control the world, but you can control how you meet it." To understand why Stoicism is booming, we have to understand what it truly is and what it is not. Stoicism is often misunderstood as emotional numbness, as a doctrine that tells you to suppress your feelings and face life with flat detachment. But this is a distortion. Stoicism is not about shutting down emotion. It is about refusing to be ruled by it. The Stoics believed that the good life is built on inner freedom, and inner freedom comes from understanding what is in your control and what is not. This principle, called the dichotomy of control, is deceptively simple. You can control your actions, your judgments, your character, and the way you choose to interpret events. You cannot control external outcomes, other people, the past, or the random forces of fate. When you invest your energy into what you can influence, you gain power. When you surrender attachment to what lies outside your reach, you gain peace. The central aim of Stoicism is virtue, not in a moralistic sense, but in the sense of excellence of character. Courage, wisdom, justice, and temperance are the pillars of that excellence. The Stoics believed that virtue is the only true measure of a good life, because everything else, wealth, reputation, comfort, success, is fragile, temporary, and dependent on forces beyond your command. Modern neuroscience provides a surprising confirmation of their intuition. Human stress is shaped not by events themselves, but by our perception, our appraisal, and our sense of controllability. When we believe we have some influence over a situation, our brain's threat circuitry calms. When we believe we do not, the amygdala fires more intensely, cortisol rises, and our thoughts spiral. The Stoics did not know about neurotransmitters or prefrontal regulatory pathways, but they understood the essence of psychological resilience. We suffer more from imagination than reality, because the mind interprets experience before we consciously understand it. This is the beginning of the deep insight behind Stoicism's modern boom. The world is overflowing. Notifications tug at our attention like invisible hands. News cycles collapse into one another until everything feels urgent and alarming. Social media creates a constant comparison loop, a window into millions of curated lives that make our own feel insufficient. Economic volatility breeds uncertainty. Digital overload blurs the boundary between our inner and outer worlds. We scroll through disasters, achievements, tragedies, conflicts, arguments, triumphs, and fears, all within minutes. No nervous system evolved for this. We carry in our pockets a device that streams human triumphs and failures into our eyes at speeds the ancient world could not imagine. In that environment, the brain begins to falter. Its threat detection systems become hyperactive. It feels as if everything demands our emotional energy. Everything feels personal. Everything feels like it requires a response. Stress becomes chronic, not because we are weak, but because our world is designed to overwhelm the circuitry of attention. Stoicism enters this landscape like a counterforce, a philosophy built on the skill of disentangling what truly matters from what merely feels urgent. Consider how neuroscience describes emotional regulation. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for deliberate thinking, can reinterpret signals sent by the limbic system. This process, called cognitive reappraisal, reduces emotional intensity. It interrupts automatic reactions. It gives us space. When Epictetus said that we are disturbed not by things, but by the views we take of them, he was describing a principle that neuroscientists today study in labs. When Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself about reminding the mind to see events as neutral until judged, he was outlining a method now foundational in modern psychological therapies. The Stoics understood something essential. Perception is a skill. You can train it. You can refine it. You can choose how to frame your experience. But the popularity of Stoicism today is not just psychological, it is cultural. We live in a time of accelerating change. Careers transform. Technologies disrupt whole industries overnight. Social identity is constantly under negotiation. The sense of control that once came from stable traditions or predictable social structures is eroding. People feel lost in a world that moves too fast to anchor them. Stoicism offers a map that does not rely on external stability. It offers a way of being that remains grounded even when everything around it shifts. This is why so many young people are drawn to it. In a world where identity is fluid, where expectations shift, where opportunities feel both infinite and unreachable, Stoicism teaches a practice of self-authorship. It teaches that your worth does not depend on validation, metrics, or public approval. It teaches that meaning is built internally, not granted externally. And it does this without demanding belief in metaphysical systems or rigid rituals. It is philosophy stripped to its essence, a guide for how to live. Imagine the contrast. A modern person wakes up to the sound of a phone vibrating. Half asleep, they swipe through messages, a group chat argument, a breaking news alert, a trending post about a crisis in another country, a comparison spiral triggered by a stranger's success, emails waiting, deadlines looming, notifications blooming like neon flowers across the screen. Their mind fragments before the day begins. They move through the morning with a sense of invisible weight, anxiety without a clear source, urgency without a clear direction. They feel pulled into 100 emotional worlds they did not choose. Now shift the scene. A Stoic thinker sits beside a plain wooden desk. There is no noise except the faint sound of wind outside. A simple lamp glows. They open a journal and write a single line. What is in my control? They reflect on their choices, their intentions, their character. Their attention narrows not toward the infinite noise of the world, but toward the small realm of their own agency. The calm does not come from isolation, it comes from clarity. They understand that the world will rise and fall in waves, but their ability to meet it with virtue remains intact. This contrast is not fantasy. This is the emotional difference people feel when they begin applying Stoicism. It is the difference between living reactively and living intentionally. The modern boom is not accidental. Stoicism has become a form of accessible self-help. But unlike much of the self-help industry, it does not rely on motivation or relentless positivity. It does not promise success. It does not guarantee happiness. It promises something sturdier, the capacity to respond to life with steadiness, to see clearly, to make choices aligned with your values even in difficulty. Creators share Stoic ideas because they resonate with audiences who feel overwhelmed. Influencers talk about it because it helps them manage the pressures of constant visibility. Athletes use it because it trains focus. Young people adopt it because it offers a stable identity amid uncertainty. Professionals turn to it because it reduces the emotional volatility of modern work. In a time when many feel powerless, Stoicism restores a sense of agency, not over the world, but over the self. When Seneca wrote about the flickering lamp of the mind, he was describing the fragile nature of attention. When Marcus Aurelius reminded himself not to be pulled by every impulse, he was writing the ancient equivalent of digital detox advice. When Epictetus taught about mastering one's reactions, he was laying the foundation for modern cognitive therapy. But the real reason Stoicism resonates today is simpler. Modern life has become so complex that ancient simplicity feels revolutionary. Stoicism teaches a way to simplify without ignoring complexity. It teaches that your inner world can be ordered, even if the outer world is chaotic. It teaches that meaning comes not from controlling the universe, but from shaping your response to it. And so the boom continues. People apply Stoicism in small, practical ways. A student facing exam pressure reframes their anxiety. I can control my effort, not the outcome. A creator dealing with criticism remembers, I can control the quality of my work, not the reaction to it. A worker navigating uncertainty reminds themselves, I can control my choices today, not the future economy. A friend dealing with conflict reflects, I can control my words and intentions, not another person's feelings. These applications sound simple, but when repeated, they reshape emotional experience. They build resilience. They train the mind to step back from spirals of worry and see situations with clarity. This is the practical heart of Stoicism. If you want to use Stoic wisdom in your daily life, begin with a few simple practices. When confronted with stress, pause and ask, what exactly is within my control right now? It is a deceptively powerful question. It interrupts panic. It activates the thinking brain. It pulls energy away from catastrophizing and back toward action. Next, practice separating events from interpretations. When something happens, describe it neutrally first. Instead of, this is a disaster, try this is a challenge. Instead of, everyone hates my work, try this received criticism. The language you choose shapes your emotional state. The Stoics knew that perception is the first lever of freedom. Then redirect your attention. The Stoics believed that attention is the most valuable resource we have, because it determines the quality of our inner world. When you give attention to what you cannot control, you drain your strength. When you give attention to what you can influence, your effort, your character, your decisions, you feel more grounded. Try the habit of negative visualization, not to create fear, but to build gratitude. Imagine losing something you take for granted, a friend, an ability, a simple comfort. This practice makes you appreciate the present moment more deeply. It reminds you that life's gifts are fragile and precious. Finally, build the Stoic mindset of reframing. When facing a challenge, ask, how can this make me stronger, wiser, or more patient? This is not forced positivity. It is training the mind to see difficulty as an opportunity for growth. It is pointing your attention toward agency, even in adversity. Stoicism is booming because it works, not in a mystical way, not through blind optimism, but through the cultivation of steady, intentional perception. It helps people navigate a world that moves too fast, overwhelms too easily, and offers too little clarity. In the end, Stoicism is not about renouncing emotion. It is about understanding emotion. It is not about ignoring difficulty. It is about meeting difficulty with a mind that knows its own strength. It is not about retreating from the world. It is about engaging with the world from a place of inner stability rather than reactivity. The ancient Stoics believed that the good life is not found in the external world, but in the alignment between your values and your actions. In that sense, Stoicism is not just a philosophy. It is a discipline of attention, a way of seeing, a way of choosing. As modern life grows more chaotic, people instinctively seek wisdom that feels timeless, durable, and human. Stoicism offers a language for that search. It offers a framework for navigating uncertainty with grace. It offers a sense of identity grounded not in trends or metrics, but in character. And perhaps that is the final paradox. In a world obsessed with the new, it is ancient wisdom that feels like the future. In a time of rapid technological change, it is the stillness of the mind that feels revolutionary. In an era of powerlessness, it is the quiet discipline of focusing on what we can control that feels like a profound act of liberation. Stoicism is booming, not because it promises perfection, but because it teaches resilience. Not because it offers escape, but because it offers clarity. Not because it belongs to the past, but because it illuminates the present. And the present is where finally we learn to live.